The bull is crowned. All is done. The sacrificer is ready. This was the oracle that Philip of Macedon, father of Alexander the Great, was given by the Pythia in the year 350 BCE. He thought that this oracle was positive for him to invade Persia. He thought that the bull to be sacrificed was Darius. Little did he know, the bull was himself. Philip of Macedon had just completed decades-long campaign to unify the Greek city-states into the League of Hellas, the first time that Greece ever had an empire under Macedonia. The only part of the Greek world that stayed out was Sparta. This is something that had never been done before. So after the oracle, Philip of Macedon returned back to Pella, the capital, and held a procession to celebrate. They brought out the 12 Olympian gods, erected in gold, with a 13th god, which was Philip himself. And he had himself enthroned in the middle of the 12 gods. And just as the crowd began to cheer, Philip's ex-lover, Pausanias of Orestes, stabbed him to death. Alexander was immediately hailed as the new king of Macedon. The point of this story is, the oracle did not lie. Philip was the bull who was crowned. The oracle at Delphi is the oracle of Apollo. Apollo is the patron deity of oracles and the averter of evil, father of Asclepius, sometimes identified with the sun, giver of light, and the laurel crown. He's also considered to be the god of music, song, dance, and poetry, inventor of the string instruments, such as the lyre, and a frequent companion with the Muses. The oracle of Apollo, its origins are dated to the 9th century BCE, and eventually developed into the most important Greek oracle. It was consulted by individuals and played an important guiding role in the formation of the Greek polis and in colonization. It gave guidance on pollution, the release from evils, laws, and above all, cults. The story that Apollo was not the original owner of the oracle, but replaced an earlier deity, has many versions, including Gaia or Themis, or both, expressing the perception that at Delphi, Chthonian, dangerous and disorderly aspects of the cosmos have been defeated by and subordinated to the celestial guide and lawgiver, Apollo. Apollo's oracle has tamed the darker side of the cosmos, both at the theological and at the human level. It therefore gives men and women divine guidance through which they can cope with this side of the cosmos. Pindar, in his Paean 8:65-75, addresses the Muses. Muses, what was its fashion shown by the skill in all arts of the hands of Hephaestus and Athena? Of bronze the walls, and of bronze stood the pillars beneath, but of gold were 6 enchantresses, who sang above the eagle. But the sons of Croesus opened the earth with a thunderbolt, and hid the holiest of all things made, away from their children and wives, when they hung their lives on the honey-hearted words. The story of the founding of the oracle at Delphi, as I mentioned, has many versions, but the most understood version is this. Apollo was the son of Zeus and Leto. He was born at Delos under a palm tree, As soon as the goddess Themis gave him his first food, ambrosia, and the nectar to drink, the baby immediately left the island. He went to Delphi, where he tried to build his own temple. There, a dragon Python stood against him, whom he killed with his bow, though he was still a child. Apollo named that place Pythos and made it a place of worship, and there the famous Oracle of Delphi was created, and great celebrations were held in his honor. After the death of the dragon, Apollo was considered the protector of moral order and modesty, and the punisher of every transgression. The criminals asked for his help in order to be accepted again by gods and men. The earliest temple for which there is evidence belongs to the second half of the 7th century BCE. The temple, whose remains are visible, was built in the 4th century BCE. Its predecessor was built in the last quarter of the 6th century BCE, after the earlier temple had been burnt down in 548. The oracular consultation took place in the Agathon, the innermost sanctuary, in which stood the Omphalos, marking the center of the world as determined by Zeus, who released 2 eagles, one from the east and one from the west, which met at Delphi. Another story makes the Omphalos, or Pythons, or Dionysus' tomb. Also in the Agathon grew a laurel tree, but the chasm with the vapors is a Hellenistic invention. The inquirer had to pay a consultation tax called pelanos, which had begun as a bloodless offering and kept the name when it became a monetary contribution. At the altar outside the temple was offered the preliminary sacrifice before the consultation, the Prophecies, which on regular consultation days was offered by a Delphic polis on behalf of all inquirers. On other days, it was offered by the inquirer by the proxenos of his city. Non-Delphians were treated at the Delphic oracle as kenoi, foreigners, worshipping at the sanctuary of another polis. If the preliminary ritual was successful, if the animal had reacted as it should when sprinkled with water, it was sacrificed, and the inquirer entered the temple, where he offered a second sacrifice, depositing either a whole victim or parts of one on trapeza, the offering table, at the entrance of the Agathon. He then went with the prophetess and other cult personnel to a space from which he could not see the Pythia in the Agathon. The Pythia, who had prepared herself by purification at the Castalian spring, burnt laurel leaves and barley meal on the altar called Hestia inside the temple, which came to be seen as the common hearth of Greece. Crowned with laurel, she sat on the tripod, became possessed by the god, and shaking a laurel, prophesied under her divine inspiration, a state which may correspond to what in non-religious explanatory models would be considered a self-induced trance. Her pronouncements were then somehow shaped by the prophetess. Exactly what Pythia's pronouncements took and what she felt and what the prophetess did are matters of controversy. One possibility is that she felt and received partial signs transmitting fragmentary visions, not gibberish, and that the prophetess interpreted these, shaping them into coherent, if ambiguous, responses. This was not an attempt to hedge their bets, but a result of the ambiguity inherent in the god signs, and the Greek perception that the ambiguity is the idiom of prophecy, that there are limits to humans' access to knowledge about the future. The God speaks ambiguously, and human fallibility intervenes, and they misinterpret the messages. For example, Herodotus tells us that when Xerxes, son of Darius, returned to finish the job of conquering the Greeks, the Athenians consulted the oracle, and they were told, "Your statues are standing on pouring sweat. They shiver with dread. The black blood drips from the highest rooftops. They have seen the necessity of evil. Get out of my sanctum, and drown your spirits in woe." On a second oracle, they got told, "Await not in quiet the coming of the horses, the marching feet, the armed host upon the land. Slip away, turn your back. You will meet in battle anyway. O holy Salamis, you will be the death of many a woman's son between the seed time and the harvest of grain." The Delphians then themselves asked how Persia could be defeated. The oracle replied, "Pray to the winds. They will prove to be the mighty allies of Greece." Events overtook the prophecy when the Persian army assaulted Thermopylae, the famous battle from the movie 300. And allies held the pass against them. The Spartans, under King Leonidas, resisted the Persian advance at Thermopylae until betrayed. Refusing to retreat, the entire Spartan contingent, including their king, lost their lives, but in doing so, gained immortal fame. The Persian armada then sailed to nearby Cape Artemisium, where they were met by the Athenian fleet. The Athenian ships fought against great odds, but in 3 battles managed to hold their own. Because of this, the oracle was seen as the most accurate, and it gained fame forever, all the way up until through the time of Christianity. When Plutarch famously got an oracle that the great god Pan is dead. Plutarch believed that Pan actually died. An Egyptian sailor named Themis was sailing to Italy. As he passed by the Greek islands, he heard a divine voice call to him from across the river. The voice addressed Themis by name and told him, "The great god Pan is dead." The sailor announced this news when he reached port, and the story of Pan's death quickly spread. While the manner of Pan's death was not addressed directly by Plutarch in his writing, the story became a popular one. Plutarch was the high priest of Delphi. When the writers of early Christian era spread the story, believing the divine voice in Plutarch's story was that of their own god, and that Pan was the image of the devil, and that Christ would be the one to conquer the pagan world. The most important of the oracles, Croesus of Lydia, in 560 BCE, in a trial of oracles, asked the prophetess his fate. The Pythia responded, "I know the number of the sand and the measure of the sea. I understand the speech of the dumb and hear the voiceless. The smell has come to my sense of hard-shelled tortoise being cooked with the lamb's flesh in a bronze pot. Bronze is the cauldron underneath, and bronze is the lid." Croesus then asked if he should make war on the Persians, and if he should take to himself any allied force. The oracle to whom he sent this question included both Delphi and Thebes. Both oracles gave the same response, that if Croesus made war on the Persians, he would destroy a mighty empire. Little did he know the ambiguity of this phrase, that a mighty empire would be destroyed. He did not realize that the mighty empire was not the empire of the Persians, but him. And so he asked, would his monarchy last long? Whenever a mule shall become sovereign king of the Medians, Lydian delicate foot, flee by the stone-strewn Hermus, flee, and think not to stand fast, nor shame to be chicken-hearted. Croesus thought it is impossible that a mule should be king of Medes, and thus believed that he and his issue would never be out of power. He thus decided to make common cause certain Greek city-states and attack Persia. However, it was his empire, not the Persians, that would be defeated, fulfilling the prophecy, but not his interpretation of it. He apparently thought that Cyrus, the victor, was the Mede, and therefore could be considered the mule. In Bacchylides' ode, composed for Hero of Syracuse, who won the chariot race at Olympia in 468, Croesus, with his wife and family, mounted the funeral pyre. But before the flames could envelop the king, he was snatched up by Apollo and spirited away to the Hyperboreans. Herodotus' version includes Apollo in a more realistic mode, Cyrus repenting of the immolation of Croesus could not be put out the flames until Apollo intervened. In 67 of the Common Era, Nero, just 30 years old, had killed his own mother, visited in the year 59, had visited the oracle and was told, "Your presence here outrages the God that you seek. Go back, matricide. The number 73 marks the hour of your downfall." The incensed emperor had the Pythia burned alive. Nero thought he would have a long reign and die at 73. Instead, his reign came to a short end after a revolt led by Galba, who was 73 at the time Nero was killed. Once again, the oracle not exactly wrong, but not exactly as interpreted at the time when Nero heard the words. 73, what does that mean? It could mean a lot of things. In this case, it didn't mean the age of Nero, it meant the age of the person that came to kill Nero. Hadrian visited Delphi before he reached the throne. After drinking from the Castilian spring, his destiny as emperor was proclaimed. When he had acceded to the throne, he ordered it blocked up so no one else could get the same idea in the same way. 2 centuries later, Diocletian, consulting the oracle on the advice of Galerius, was told that the sect of Christianity would lead to the destruction of the empire. This led to the Diocletian persecution of Christianity. Christians were persecuted for not agreeing to the sacrifices to the Greek and Roman gods. After the Edict of Toleration by Constantine, and especially after the reign of Theodosius, Christians retaliated by persecuting the Pythia itself and shut it down completely. Julian the Apostate, the last pagan emperor, visited the Delphic oracle, which was now in a rather desolate state, offering his emperor's services to the temple, in return receiving one of the last prophecies that have been recorded and passed down by Delphi. It says, "Tell the emperor that my hall has fallen to the ground. Apollo no longer has his house, nor his mantic bay. nor his prophetic spring. The water has dried up. Both Apollo and Pan were very important gods to Delphi. They were always depicted together, playing music, Pan with his flute, Apollo with his lyre. And these gods have no longer given out prophecies to people due to the rise of Judeo-Christianity in the Roman East. The most important of the oracle's religious personnel, the Pythia, were just ordinary women who served for life and remained chaste throughout her service, participated in the ritual of the consultation and shared tasks with the propheti and the priest of Apollo. The Pythia is not mentioned in the oldest document informing us about the Delphic cult and oracle, the Homeric Hymn to Apollo, where the god gives oracular responses from the laurel tree, an expression that corresponds closely to that used in the Odyssey. For the Prophecies at Dodona, where the oak tree spoke the will of Zeus, which was interpreted by priests. A similar practice involving the laurel may perhaps been practiced at Delphi at an early period. Whether divination by lot was practiced at Delphi as a separate rite is a matter of controversy. Control of the oracle was in the hands of Delphic Amphictyony, run by the Amphictyonic Council, whose duties included the conduct of the Pan-Hellenic Pythian Games, the care of the finances of the sanctuary, and the upkeep of the temple. The Amphictyony, we are told, fought a war against Croesus and defeated it. This is the first sacred war, the historicity of which has been doubted. But the traditional date for its end, 590 BCE, coincides with the beginning of a period of transformation, serious upgrading of the sanctuary, not the least of its manifestations being the building of several treasuries. The first Pythian Games were held to celebrate the Amphictyony's victory. Other sacred wars took place subsequently, of which the fourth ended in 338, with the victory of Philip of Macedon at the Battle of Chaeronea. It is not true that the oracle's influence had diminished as a result of its suspect position in the Persian Wars. Its influence continued, only its political role inevitably diminished in radically changed circumstances of the Hellenistic and Greco-Roman world. Today, there are still remains of the famous sanctuary of Apollo on Delphi. People still go there. Pillars are still seen. The circle is still shown. But the days of oracles are long gone. Let me know what you guys think of this story of the Delphi Pythia. Write in the comments what you guys think. If I left anything out, anything else interesting about this, and you have just attained true gnosis.